I'm Elle, and this is my little cousin, and we're super excited because today we're going to use our superpowers to teach you your direction. You've already learned that you can use your letters to find direction on things, and same thing with numbers. You can number things to find direction. But did you know that you have direction? That's right, you have direction. So we're going to show you how to find your direction using your letters and your numbers. And guess what? It's just like when you find direction on things. Just remember, everything has direction, including you. Okay, let's put our superpowers together, cousins, so that we can teach them about their direction. But first, we're going to turn around so that we're facing your direction. Do you see the back of our heads? Do you see the back of my head and the back of my cousin's head? That means that our eyes are all seeing the same thing. We're facing the same direction as you. So now we're sharing your direction. We're facing the same way as you. So, do you see an Indian elephant? Do you see this elephant? He's from India. Look at all its pretty colors. If you're seeing the Indian elephant and we're seeing the Indian elephant, then that means that we're seeing the same thing. So we're all facing the same direction. Now, do you see the queen with her tongue stuck out? She's a dancing queen and she's holding the apple. If you're seeing the queen, that means that we're all seeing the same thing. We're sharing direction. We're all faced the same way. So that means that we all have the same direction. So let's learn about your direction now that we're all faced the same way. Well, you already learned that we can use our superpowers to get direction. We learned that we can use letters to get direction. At least that's my superpowers. I love using my letters. And for my cousin, my little cousin, he likes to use his numbers. So we're going to review what we already learned. So if I were to get direction on this castle here, see these 3 doors? I need to figure out which one's on the left, which one's on the right, and which one's in the middle. Then I would just simply float my letters. So I get out my capital L building, I make my capital L building, and remember, put your star in the window and then blow and make your wish and then follow those stars. And that takes you to the left. So this green star is the left. Do you see that? And one more thing. Sometimes letters just magically appear for me. Did you see that? See my mountain monsters? I told you, letters just magically appear for me. They may just magically appear for you too, depending on what your superpowers are. So the purple door is in the middle. And then for my last door, I just think of the last letter. It's the red reptile tree, and I just follow that road. And that takes me to the right. And sometimes I like to pretend when I make my letter that I'm on a roller coaster. I just simply write it like a roller coaster, like I pretend I'm on one. But remember, it's your superpower. It depends on how you make the letter. Sometimes I like to float them. Sometimes they magically appear. And sometimes I like to pretend that I'm on a ride. And sometimes I like to just write it in the air or pretend I'm writing it in the air. Remember, it's your superpower. You get to make your letters any way you want to. Now, if my cousin needed to find direction on the castle, for instance, if somebody said you need to run to the left side of the castle, then my cousin, remember, his superpowers are numbers. So he would take his number 1 out, his 1 Lefty Dragon, and he knows the 1 Lefty Dragon sticks his tongue out and blows his fire or breath away from the other numbers. Remember, he has really bad breath. And he's the number 1. And he has the capital L in him. So this side is the left side of the castle. And then he would count number 2 for his mountain monsters that live in the middle. So this part of the castle is the middle. And then for his last number, he would just take his number 3 out, his bouncy bus. And he knows the bouncy bus, when it gets on the number 3 road, it heads towards those rocks that live in the right. So that's the right. That bouncy bus is heading to the red reptile tree. So this whole part is right. So I just used my letters to get direction, and my cousin used his numbers to get direction. And remember, my cousin, he likes to float his numbers, but you may imagine yourself writing the letter in the air, or maybe you're writing the letter like a roller coaster. So, however you want to do it, remember, they're your superpowers. You make the numbers the way you want to make them. They're your superpowers. Well, did you know that you have direction on yourself? You have a left side, a middle side, and a right side. And if you wanted to count like my little cousin, you would have a 1 side, a 2 side, and a 3 side. Let's look at our letters first. Okay, do you see I'm standing in front of the letters right now? Well, we just counted things have direction when we're looking at them. Did you know that you have direction? And it's the same direction. We use our same letters and numbers too. So, for instance, let's look at my hand here. Now, which hand is closer to the capital L building? It's this hand. This hand's closer to the capital L building, so this is my left hand. Same thing if I looked at my head, look at my ear. My ear is closest to the capital L building, so this is my left. Same with my feet. Look at my feet. My feet, my legs, closest to the capital L building is my left side. So this whole side is my left. Now, for my middle, all I do is I look at the mountain monsters. Do you see those mountain monsters? There's 1, 2. We'll find the middle. All I do is I just do an imaginary line right down the middle of my body. And that's my middle. My middle just goes right down the middle. And for the right, that's easy. Look at my hand. That's closest to the red reptile tree. This is my right. Same thing with my head. This part of my head is closer to the red reptile tree. So that's my right. So do you see? We can use our letters to find direction on ourselves. We can make our letters in front of us to get direction. We're going to practice some more finding direction on ourselves by using our letters. Okay, first thing I would do is I would take out my capital L building, make it, put my star in the corner, then make my wish and follow my wishes. And this is my left side. So do you see the hand that's closest to the capital L building? Well, then that's your left. Pretty easy. Can you shake your hand that's closest to the capital L building? That's your left. How about your foot that's closest to the capital L building or closest to the stars? That's your left. Shake your foot. Next, I would take out my mountain monsters. And remember, the mountain monsters, their job is to live in the middle. And I'd put them in the middle. I'd count the mountain monsters 1, 2, and see this point here? That's the middle. Then I would do an imaginary line down the middle of my body, and that's my middle. I have a middle. Then I would take my last letter out, which is my red reptile tree, and I would follow that road towards the right. So this side is my right. So all I would have to do is look at this hand here. It's closest to the red reptile tree. It's closest to the road. So that's my right hand. Can you wiggle your hand that's closest to the red reptile tree? That's your right. Same with your foot. You can shake your foot towards the red reptile tree. And that's your right. So see, all you have to do is make your letters to find direction on yourself. Just remember, the middle separates your left and your right. Little cousin would like to show you how he finds his direction using his numbers. First, he'd take out his 1 Lefty Dragon. And remember, the 1 Lefty Dragon sticks his tongue out and blows his fire away from the other numbers. And he goes first. So this is his 1 side. So see this hand that's closest to the number 1? That's his left. You shake your foot that's closest to the number 1? Well, that's your left foot. Then he would take out his 2 mountain monsters and put them in the middle. And then he would count the mountain monsters 1, 2, find the middle, and make an imaginary line right down the middle of his body. And that's his middle. Then he would take his last number out, the number 3, the bouncy bus that gets on the number 3 road and is heading towards those rocks. And it's heading towards the red reptile tree. So that's the right. So do you see that this hand that's closest to the number 3 is his right? So can you shake your hand? That's your right. Same with this foot here. That's closest to the number 3 or the road, that's your right. So just remember that your middle separates your left and your right, or your 1 and your 3. We're going to practice finding direction, more direction. Do you see this person sitting at the laptop? This is their hands. We're going to pretend this is you sitting here at the laptop. See, you're facing the same direction as them. You can see the laptop, right? So we're going to pretend these are your hands. And if I wanted to find direction, I would put the letters and numbers on my hands. And I would put the middle above my head. We're going to pretend this is the above, the top of your head. So all I would do is, let's start with the numbers first. I would take my one Lefty Dragon, and remember, he sticks his tongue out and blows his fire away from the other numbers, and he's the number 1, so he goes first. And remember, he has the capital L in him for left, so this is my left hand. Next, I would take my number 2, and remember, I told you put him at the top. So that's 1, 2 mountain monsters, and I do my imaginary line right down the middle of my body, and that's my middle. And then my last number, I would take the number 3, and remember, that's the bouncy bus that gets on the number 3 road and follows the road or the rocks to the right, towards that red reptile tree. So this is my right hand. Do you see? You can get direction by just counting. Next, if I wanted to use my letters, then I would take my capital L building, make it, put the star in the corner, make my wish, and follow my stars. And that's the left hand. Do you see? This is my left hand. And for my mountain monsters, just remember they live in the middle. And I would just count them, 1, 2, find the point, and make that imaginary line right down the middle of my body, and that's my middle. Then, for my last letter, I take out my capital R, follow the road, and remember, when he can only go right. So, this is my right hand. So, do you see? All we have to do is we can make our letters to find our direction. This is my right hand. So all you can do is you can count finding direction or use your letters on yourself to find direction. Just remember, everybody has superpowers. I like to use my superpowers using my letters to find direction on myself. And I use my letters to find direction on things. And my little cousin, his superpowers is he likes to use his numbers to count direction on himself. And he uses his numbers to count direction on things. So remember, everybody's superpowers are different. So all you have to do is figure out what your superpowers are. We found out what our superpowers are, and it makes learning so much easier. So go out and find out what your superpowers are, and now you can find direction on anything. Just remember, everything has direction, and so do you. So you can go out and find direction either using your letters or numbers. We thank you for watching Directional Learning, and we can't wait to teach you more using our superpowers.